You're a disgrace to this family, Amity. Clem's words cut through the somber atmosphere like a knife, her face contorted with anger. I stood there, stunned, as the rest of our family shifted uncomfortably around us. The funeral reception had barely begun, and already my sister was picking a fight. "How dare you cry like that at Dad's funeral? You're embarrassing us all," she hissed, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my arm. I yanked away from her grip, my own anger rising. He was our father, Clem. We're supposed to mourn him. "Please, girls, our mother, Lydia," intervened, her voice trembling. "Not here. Not now." But Clem wasn't finished. "Always the perfect daughter, aren't you? Well, guess what? Dad's gone, and your little act doesn't matter anymore. My name is Amity, and this is how my world began to unravel on the day we buried my father." I clutched the letter in my pocket, the last words Dad had written to me before his sudden death. It was meant to be a guide, a promise for the future family I was about to start. Now, it felt like a bitter reminder of everything I'd lost. "You don't know what you're talking about," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad loved us both." Clem scoffed. "Oh, please. We both know who the favorite was." My husband, Marlon, stepped between us. "That's enough, Clem. This isn't the time or place." She turned her venom on him. "Stay out of this, Marlon. You're not even real family." I saw the hurt flash across his face, and something inside me snapped. "Don't you dare speak to him like that. Just because your own marriage is a mess doesn't mean you can take it out on us." The room fell silent. Clem's husband, Silas, looked up from his phone, suddenly interested in the drama unfolding. "What did you just say?" Clem's voice was dangerously low. Before I could respond, a throat cleared behind us. We turned to see Dad's lawyer, Mr. Finch, standing in the doorway. "I apologize for interrupting," he said, his eyes darting between Clem and me. "But it's time for the reading of the will." The tension in the room shifted. Clem's anger seemed to evaporate, replaced by a hungry gleam in her eyes. "Well, it's about time," she muttered. As we filed into Dad's study, I felt a wave of nausea. This was all wrong. We should be remembering Dad, sharing stories about his kindness, his humor. Instead, we were about to fight over his possessions like vultures. Mr. Finch settled behind Dad's desk, a thick envelope in his hands. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to remind you all that Reed was a complex man. His decisions may not always make sense to us, but we must respect his wishes." I saw Clem roll her eyes, and my stomach clenched. Whatever was in that envelope, I knew it was about to change everything. "Let's get on with it," Clem snapped. "Some of us have real lives to get back to." Mr. Finch nodded, breaking the seal on the envelope. As he began to read, I closed my eyes, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach. "Dad, I wish you could have met your grandchild. I wish you could have guided us through this mess." But as the lawyer's words washed over me, I realized that maybe, just maybe, Dad had found a way to do exactly that. Mr. Finch's voice droned on, listing Dad's assets and their distribution. I struggled to focus, the weight of grief and exhaustion pressing down on me. But as he mentioned a piece of land with a neglected cabin, my ears perked up. "The property at 1852 Willow Creek Road, including all structures and contents therein, is to be left to Amity," Mr. Finch read. Clem's head snapped up. "What? That old dump? Why would she get that?" I remembered the cabin vaguely, a place Dad used to go for solitude. He'd never taken us there, always saying it wasn't ready for visitors. Mr. Finch continued, "The remainder of the liquid assets are to be divided equally between Clementine and Amity." Clem's eyes lit up. "Now we're talking. How much are we looking at?" As Mr. Finch named the figure, I felt my stomach drop. It was far less than any of us had expected. "That's it," Clem exploded. "There has to be more. Where's the rest of it?" Mr. Finch adjusted his glasses. "I'm afraid that's all a mess. Clementine, your father's medical bills and some recent large withdrawals have significantly depleted the estate." Clem turned on me, her face flushed with anger. "This is your fault somehow. You always were Dad's favorite. What did you do? Convince him to give you more on the side? That's enough, Mom interjected, her voice sharp. Your father worked hard for what he had, and it's not our place to question his decisions. Clem wasn't listening. She stalked over to Mr. Finch's desk, snatching up the papers. I want to see those withdrawal records. There's no way Dad spent that much. As Clem pored over the documents, muttering to herself, I felt a strange pull towards the idea of the cabin. What secrets did it hold? Why had Dad left it to me specifically? Clem, I said softly, the cabin might be worth something. We could sell it and split Dash. Oh, please, she scoffed. That worthless shack. You're welcome to it. I'll take my share in cash. Thank you very much. Silas, who had been silent until now, placed a hand on Clem's shoulder. Darling, perhaps we should discuss this at home. There might be more to consider. Clem shrugged him off. There's nothing to discuss. I'm taking what's rightfully mine. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. I caught Marlon's eye, and he gave me a supportive nod. Mr. Finch, I asked, is there anything else? Any messages or instructions Dad left behind? The lawyer hesitated, then reached into his briefcase. There is one more thing. A letter, addressed to both of you. He held out an envelope. Clem snatched it before I could reach for it. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the contents. Her face twisted into a sneer. Typical, she spat, crumpling the paper and tossing it aside. More of Dad's sentimental garbage. I retrieved the letter, smoothing it out. Dad's familiar handwriting brought a lump to my throat. My dear girls, I hope you'll forgive an old man's secrets. The true value of what I leave behind isn't in bank accounts or property deeds. It's in the lessons I hope you've learned and the love I know you're capable of sharing. Amity, the cabin holds more than meets the eye. Clem, your strength has always been your greatest asset and your greatest weakness. I pray you'll both find what you truly need. Love always. Dad. I looked up to see Clem gathering her things, a determined set to her jaw. I'm taking my share and going, she announced. Silas, we're leaving. As they swept out of the room, I clutched the letter to my chest. Whatever Dad had hidden away in that cabin, I knew I had to find it. Not just for myself, but for the family he'd left behind. Broken, but not beyond repair. Mom squeezed my hand. Are you all right, sweetheart? I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. I think I need to visit that cabin. The gravel crunched under our tires as Marlon and I pulled up to the cabin. It was more dilapidated than I remembered, its weathered boards and sagging roof a testament to years of neglect. Are you sure about this, Amity? Marlon asked, eyeing the structure warily. I nodded, determination overriding my apprehension. Dad left this to me, for a reason. I need to know why. We approached the front door, its peeling paint flaking off at my touch. The key Mr. Finch had given me turned with difficulty in the rusty lock. Inside, the air was thick with dust and memories. Sheets covered most of the furniture, creating ghostly shapes in the dim light. I moved through the rooms, running my fingers along surfaces, searching for something. I wasn't sure what. Amity, look at this. Marlon called from the study. I joined him, finding him examining a large desk. It seemed out of place, newer and better maintained than the rest of the furniture. There's something off about it, he mused, tapping the wood. It sounds hollow in places. We spent the next hour searching the desk, looking for hidden compartments or secret drawers. Just as I was about to give up, my fingers caught on a small indentation beneath the writing surface. There was a soft click, and a panel slid open. Oh my God, I breathed, reaching inside. I pulled out a stack of letters, yellowed with age, and a folded piece of paper that looked like a map. My hands trembled as I opened the first letter. My dearest Amity, it began in Dad's familiar scrawl. If you're reading this, it means I've failed in my greatest endeavor, to heal the rift in our family. But perhaps, through you, there's still hope. Tears blurred my vision as I read on. Dad wrote of his regrets, of the mistakes he'd made in raising Clem and me. He spoke of a dream he'd had for us, a legacy that went beyond money or possessions. The map will guide you to what truly matters, the letter concluded. Trust your heart, my little peacemaker. You've always known the way. Marlon squeezed my shoulder. What do you want to do? I looked at the map, then back at him. We follow it. Whatever Dad hid out there, he meant for me to find it. We spent the rest of the day combing the property, using the map as our guide. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the overgrown field behind the cabin, I spotted something glinting in the fading light. Rushing over, I began to dig with my bare hands. Marlon joined me, and soon we unearthed a metal box. With shaking fingers, I opened it. Inside was a journal and a collection of old photographs. I opened the journal, and a slip of paper fell out. It was a bank statement showing an account I'd never known about, with a balance that made my head spin. This can't be right, I murmured, showing Marlon. As I flipped through the journal, the truth began to emerge. Dad had been secretly building this fund for years, siphoning off portions of his income and investments. But it wasn't for himself, or even for Clem and me. It was for a foundation he'd dreamed of starting, one dedicated to helping families in crisis. He wanted to make a difference, I realized, my voice thick with emotion. To leave the world better than he found it. Marlon wrapped an arm around me, and he left that legacy in your hands. As the implications sank in, I felt a mix of awe and terror. This was so much bigger than a family inheritance. It was a responsibility, a chance to fulfill Dad's dreams, and maybe, just maybe, a way to bring our fractured family back together. But as I clutched the journal to my chest, a chill ran down my spine. How would Clem react when she found out about this? The sister who had stormed out, convinced she'd been cheated, now stood to lose so much more. I looked at Marlon, seeing my own determination reflected in his eyes. We need to do this right, I said. For Dad. For all of us. Little did I know, the real challenge was only just beginning. The morning sun filtered through the cabin's dusty windows as I pored over Dad's journal. Each page revealed a new facet of the man I thought I knew, painting a picture of someone far more complex than the father I remembered. Amity, Marlon called from the kitchen. You need to eat something. I waved him off, too engrossed in my father's words to think about food. The journal detailed years of secret philanthropy, anonymous donations, quiet acts of kindness, and a growing vision for a foundation that could change lives. I never knew, I murmured, tracing Dad's handwriting with my finger. All those business trips, the late nights, he was building this dream all along. Marlon sat beside me, sliding a plate of toast across the table. Your father was an extraordinary man. But Amity, we need to talk about what happens next. I looked up, seeing the concern in his eyes. What do you mean? This fortune, the foundation. It's a huge responsibility. And then there's Clem to consider. The mention of my sister sent a chill through me. She can't know about this. Not yet. You saw how she reacted at the will reading. Marlon sighed. We can't keep it from her forever. She's family, whether we like it or not. I was about to argue when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Clem's been asking questions about the cabin. Be careful, sweetheart. My heart raced. We need to secure everything, I said, jumping up. If Clem finds out before we're ready. We spent the next few hours cataloging every document, every heirloom we discovered. As I photographed a particularly beautiful antique locket, something caught my eye. Marlon, look at this. I called, holding the locket up to the light. There was an inscription inside, so faint I almost missed it. To my dearest Evelyn, my heart is yours always. Evelyn. Marlon frowned. I thought your grandmother's name was Margaret. A memory stirred. A hushed conversation overheard years ago, my mother's tearful voice. You can't keep hiding her, Reed. She deserves to know the truth. With trembling hands, I flipped through the journal, searching for any mention of Evelyn. Near the back, I found a loose page, covered in Dad's hurried scrawl. My darling girls, there's so much I should have told you. Evelyn was my first love, long before I met your mother. The choices I made then have shaped our family in ways you can't imagine. I pray you'll forgive me when the truth comes to light. Oh my God, I breathed, looking up at Marlon. There's more to this than just money. Dad was hiding someone all these years. Before Marlon could respond, we heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Through the window, I saw a familiar car pulling up. It's Clem, I hissed, panic rising in my throat. Quick, hide everything. We scrambled to conceal the documents and heirlooms as footsteps approached the cabin. The door burst open, revealing Clem, her face a mask of fury. Well, she sneered, taking in the scene. Looks like little sister's been busy. Find anything interesting in Daddy's summer home? I stood my ground, trying to keep my voice steady. Clem, this isn't what you think. There's so much we need to talk about. Save it, she snapped. I know you're hiding something, and I'm not leaving until I get what's rightfully mine. As Clem advanced into the room, her eyes darting around for clues, I felt the weight of Dad's secrets pressing down on me. How could I protect his legacy, uncover the truth about our family's past, and somehow bridge the chasm between my sister and me? The answers were here, somewhere in this cabin. But with Clem's arrival, the clock was ticking. I had to find a way to unravel this mystery before it tore what was left of our family apart. Clem's eyes darted around the cabin, her desperation palpable. Where is it, Amity? I know Dad left something valuable here. I stood my ground, trying to keep my voice steady. Clem, please. We need to talk about this rationally. She laughed bitterly. Rational? You want rational when you're clearly hiding something from me? Her gaze fell on the partially concealed journal on the table. What's that? Before I could react, she snatched it up, flipping through the pages. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. A foundation? Hidden accounts. Clem's voice rose with each revelation. You lying little snake. You've been holding out on me this whole time. Marlon stepped between us. Clem, it's not what you think. We only just discovered this ourselves. She shoved him aside, advancing on me. How much, Amity? How much did Dad leave that you're not telling me about? The truth hung heavy in the air. I took a deep breath, knowing this moment could shatter what was left of our relationship. It's not about the money, Clem. Dad had plans, dreams for this fortune. He wanted to help people, to make a difference. Oh, spare me the saintly act, Clem spat. You always were Daddy's perfect little girl, weren't you? Well, guess what? I have dreams too. Dreams that require money that should be half mine. Her words stung, but I held firm. I'm sorry you're struggling, Clem, but this isn't the answer. Dad wanted this money to go towards something bigger than us. Bigger than us? Clem's laugh was hollow. What about family, Amity? What about taking care of your own sister? The irony of her words wasn't lost on me. Family? You haven't acted like family in years, Clem. Where were you when Dad was sick? When Mom needed support? Her face flushed with anger. Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what I've been through, what I'm dealing with now. Something in her tone made me pause. What do you mean? Clem, are you in some kind of trouble? For a moment, vulnerability flashed across her face before the mask of anger slipped back into place. That's none of your business. What matters is that I need that money, and you're going to give me my fair share. Marlon interjected, Clem, we can't just hand over the money. There are legal implications, not to mention the ethical dash. Ethical? Clem scoffed. Since when did you care about ethics, Marlon? Or should I tell Amity about your little secret from college? I saw Marlon stiffen, his face paling. What are you talking about? Clem's smile was vicious. Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The reason you transferred schools, the real reason you and your family don't speak anymore. The room fell silent, tension crackling in the air. I looked between my husband and my sister, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Marlon, I whispered, searching his face for answers. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Amity, it's complicated. I never meant to dash. Clem cut him off. Save the excuses. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me half of whatever Dad left, or I start airing all our family's dirty laundry. Starting with golden boy Marlon here." The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt torn between protecting my father's legacy and preserving what was left of my family. "You have 24 hours to decide," Clem said, heading for the door. "Choose wisely, little sister." As the door slammed behind her, I sank into a chair, my head spinning. The cabin that had once felt like a sanctuary now seemed claustrophobic, filled with secrets and lies. Marlon reached for me, but I pulled away. "Don't," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just don't. We need to talk, but right now I need to figure out how to save Dad's dream without destroying what's left of our family." As the weight of Clem's ultimatum settled over us, I realized that uncovering the truth about my father's past was only the beginning. The real test lay in navigating the treacherous waters of the present, and somehow finding a way to honor both my father's wishes and the bonds of family. No matter how strained they might be, the tension in the cabin was suffocating. Marlon paced nervously while I sat at the table, my father's journal open before me. Clem's ultimatum echoed in my mind, a ticking time bomb threatening to tear apart what remained of our family. "Amity," Marlon began, his voice strained, "we need to talk about what Clem said." I looked up at him, searching his face for any trace of the man I thought I knew. "Yes, we do. What secret was she talking about, Marlon? What happened in college?" He sank into a chair, running his hands through his hair. "It was a long time ago. I made a mistake. A big one." As Marlon began to speak, the story unfolded like a nightmare. A drunken night, a car accident, a passenger left behind. His voice trembled as he recounted fleeing the scene, transferring schools to escape the guilt and potential consequences. "I've carried this for so long," he finished, his eyes pleading. "I never meant to keep it from you, but I was afraid. Afraid of losing you, of ruining everything we've built." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. "How could you?" I whispered. "All these years, and you never told me?" Before Marlon could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Clem. "Time's running out, sis. What's it going to be?" Anger surged through me, at Marlon for his deception, at Clem for her manipulation, at myself for being caught in the middle of it all. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "Amity, wait." Marlon called after me. "Where are you going?" "To end this," I snapped. "Once and for all." I drove to Clem's house, my mind racing. When she opened the door, her smug expression only fueled my determination. Well, she drawled. "Come to your senses, have you?" I pushed past her into the house. "We need to talk, Clem. No more games, no more threats." She followed me into the living room, where Silas sat looking confused and concerned. "Amity, what's going on?" I turned to face them both. It's time for the truth to come out. All of it. Over the next hour, I laid bare everything. Dad's secret philanthropy, the foundation he dreamed of, and yes, even Marlon's past. Silas listened in stunned silence, while Clem's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally, a flicker of something that might have been shame. "So that's it," I finished, my voice hoarse. "That's the legacy Dad left us. Not just money, but a chance to do something meaningful. To be better than we've been." Clem scoffed, but it lacked her usual venom. "And what? You expect me to just give up my share? To play along with Dad's little charity project?" "No," I said softly. "I expect you to be honest. With Silas, with yourself, about why you really need the money so desperately." The room fell silent. Silas turned to Clem, his brow furrowed. "Clem, what is she talking about?" For a moment, I saw my sister's mask slip. The vulnerability I'd glimpsed earlier returned, and with it, a flood of tears. "I messed up, okay?" she choked out. "I got in over my head with some investments. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out, but..." As Clem's financial troubles came to light, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. This was the sister I remembered, flawed, yes, but human. not the cold, calculating woman she'd become. Silas moved to comfort her, but Clem pulled away.
Don't, she said.
I don't deserve it. I've ruined everything. I took a deep breath, knowing that my next words could change the course of our family forever.
No, Clem.
You haven't. Not yet. But what you do next, that's what matters. As the three of us sat there, the weight of secrets finally lifted, I realized that this was the real test. Not just of our family bonds, but of the legacy our father had left us. Could we find a way forward to heal the wounds of the past and build something meaningful for the future? The answer, I knew, would determine not just the fate of Dad's fortune, but the very soul of our family. The tension in Clem and Silas's living room was palpable. Clem sat hunched on the couch, her face buried in her hands, while Silas paced back and forth, his expression a mix of shock and anger. How could you do this, Clem? Silas demanded. All those investments, the lies. Do you have any idea what this means for us? Clem looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. I was trying to fix it, Silas. I thought if I could just make one big score, everything would be okay. I watched the scene unfold, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sorrow. This was the reckoning I'd known was coming, but it brought me no joy to see my sister's life crumbling before my eyes. Fix it, Silas scoffed. You've ruined us, Clem. The company, our reputation, it's all gone. As Silas continued to berate Clem, I saw something shift in my sister's demeanor. The vulnerability that had briefly surfaced began to harden, her eyes taking on a familiar, calculating gleam. It's not all gone, Clem said, her voice low.
She turned to me.
Tell him, Amity. Tell him about Dad's fortune. I felt my heart race. Clem, don't dash. But she was already forging ahead, desperation fueling her words. Dad left a hidden fortune, Silas. Millions, earmarked for some ridiculous charity project. But it's family money. It belongs to us. Silas stopped pacing, his gaze darting between Clem and me. Is this true? I took a deep breath, knowing that my next words would shape the course of our family's future. Yes, it's true. But it's not what you think, Silas. Dad had a vision, a plan to help people. It's not just money to be spent. Clem let out a bitter laugh. Oh, spare me the noble act, Amity. You're just as selfish as the rest of us. You want to keep it all for yourself. Play the big philanthropist while your own sister suffers. That's not true, and you know it. I shot back, feeling my own anger rise. I've offered to help you, Clem, to find a way to make this right. But you can't just take Dad's legacy and use it to cover up your mistakes. Silas held up a hand, his face grim. Enough. Clem, I need to know exactly how bad this is. Show me everything. As Clem reluctantly pulled out financial documents and began explaining the extent of her mismanagement, I felt my phone buzz. A text from Marlon. Where are you? We need to talk. I stepped out of the room, my mind reeling. How had we come to this? Our family, once so close, now fractured by secrets and lies. When I returned, the atmosphere had shifted again. Silas stood by the window, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Clem sat at the dining table, surrounded by papers, her expression unreadable. I've seen enough, Silas said, his voice heavy. Clem, I'm sorry, but I can't be a part of this anymore. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning. We're done. Clem's head snapped up, panic flashing in her eyes. Silas, please. We can fix this. With the money from Dad's estate dash.
No, interrupta firmly.
That's not an option, Clem. The foundation is happening whether you like it or not. It's what Dad wanted. For a moment, I thought Clem might lash out again. But instead, she seemed to deflate, the fight draining out of her. Then what am I supposed to do? She whispered. I've lost everything. I moved to sit beside her, feeling a glimmer of the sisterly bond we'd once shared. Not everything, Clem. You still have family. If you're willing to make things right, to be honest for once, we can find a way through this. Together. Silas cleared his throat. Amity's right. This fortune of your father's, Maybe there's a way it can help, but not by just handing it over. We need to think bigger. As the three of us sat there, the beginnings of a plan taking shape, I felt a mix of hope and trepidation. This was our chance to honor Dad's legacy, to heal the wounds of the past. But it would require sacrifice, honesty, and a level of trust we hadn't shared in years. I took out my phone, my finger hovering over Marlon's name. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. Our family would never be the same again. The autumn breeze rustled through the trees surrounding the cabin as I stood on the porch, one hand resting on my swollen belly. 6 months had passed since that fateful day when our family secrets had come crashing down around us. Marlon appeared beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Penny for your thoughts?" I leaned into him, grateful for his steady presence. Just thinking about how much has changed. How much we've all changed. The sound of laughter drifted from inside the cabin, and I couldn't help but smile. Mom was in the kitchen with Clem, the two of them preparing dinner together, a scene I wouldn't have thought possible just a few months ago. "Are you ready for this?" Marlon asked, his voice gentle. I took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. We made our way inside, where Silas was setting the table. The cabin, once neglected and filled with secrets, now buzzed with life and purpose. Dad's dream of a charitable foundation had become a reality, with all of us playing a part. Clem looked up as we entered, her face softer than I'd seen it in years. "Just in time," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." As we gathered around the table, I couldn't help but marvel at the transformation we'd all undergone. Clem, humbled by her downfall, had thrown herself into honest work at the foundation. Silas, though no longer married to Clem, had become an invaluable advisor. And Marlon, having faced his past and made amends, was more open and connected than ever before. Mom raised her glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said, her eyes shining. "To Reed, whose legacy brought us together in ways we never could have imagined." We clinked glasses, the weight of the past few months hanging in the air between us. "I have something I want to say," Clem spoke up, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Amity, I owe you an apology. For everything. I was so caught up in my own problems, my own greed, that I lost sight of what really matters." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "We've all made mistakes, Clem. What matters is that we're here now, trying to make things right." Silas cleared his throat. "I have some news," he said. "The Foundation's first major project is ready to launch. We'll be breaking ground on the community center next month." A chorus of excitement erupted around the table. This was what Dad had dreamed of, his fortune being used to make a real difference in people's lives. As the conversation flowed, I felt a sudden kick from the baby. I gasped, drawing everyone's attention. "Are you okay?" Marlon asked, concern etched on his face. I nodded, smiling through happy tears. "More than okay. I think Dad would be proud of us." Mom reached over, squeezing my hand. "He always was, sweetheart. And he'd be over the moon about becoming a grandfather." As the evening wore on, I found myself back on the porch, watching the sun set over the trees. Marlon joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "What are you thinking about now?" he asked. I turned to face him, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. "I'm thinking about the future, about the family we're building, the legacy we're creating." Marlon placed a hand on my belly, his touch gentle. "Our little one is going to have quite the story to grow up with." I laughed softly. "They certainly are. But more importantly, they're going to have a family that knows the value of honesty, forgiveness, and working together for something bigger than ourselves." As we stood there, the warm glow of the cabin behind us and the promise of tomorrow stretching out before us, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For Dad's final gift to us, not just the money, but the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to become the family he always knew we could be. The journey had been difficult, filled with pain and betrayal, but as I looked at the life growing inside me, I knew that every step had been worth it. We had faced our demons, confronted our past, and emerged stronger for it. As the first stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, I whispered a quiet thank you to Dad. His unfinished promise had become our new beginning, a legacy of love and hope that would carry us forward into whatever challenges the future might hold.